Slides. We're already struggling. All right, we're off to a great start. Workshop chat is where you can put your questions, by the way. It's up a couple of channels in the Discord, and I will answer your questions, hopefully in real time, if you drop them there. So, hello, my name is Carl. I am a poli-sci student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I'm also the president of the Esports Club at Madison. I've been a play-by-play shoutcaster since January of 2020. I got in just before the pandemic, and then I suddenly discovered I had a very useful pandemic hobby. I'm a head administrator for Style Esports, which is an amateur organization, where I also manage the shoutcasting and do a reasonable amount of shoutcasting as well. And that's where I got a lot of my experience in the amateur scene. Outside of casting, I enjoy chess, I enjoy cooking, I like teaching others, and in my spare time, I also enjoy constitutional law, which I think is a fun kind of light evening topic just to think about in your spare time. Just random poli-sci note, gotta throw it in there. Tonight, we will be getting off the ground, kind of going through how to do your first practice cast, how to do it for real, kind of tying it into that playing for real mantra, let's do it for real. We'll do some general broadcasting skills, basics of how do I get a job, how do I actually go on air, what should I do, just some basics there for aimed at the newer audience of shoutcasting. Hand it off, take a little bit of a break. Chameleon will do a nice presentation on some solo streaming ideas. And then I'll be back and we'll go a little bit more in depth on League of Legends play-by-play. Casting job basics. Hey, how do I get a job anyway? Well, let me tell you. Esports Production Discord, that's the Discord you are in right now. I made this slide before I knew we were going to be hosting it here, and then didn't take it out. So that is still there. You'll find a collection of esports casters, producers, content creators, just a lot of really friendly folks. There's opportunities for work, there's practice opportunities, a lot of people that will be happy to help you improve and provide resources, like hopefully this session will be one day for improvement, and a lot of people that are just very, very dedicated, like Jake is, to growing the amateur esports scene, and that's a lot of what we're trying to do in the Esports Production Discord in amateur casting, is just building up that baseline of esports as, hey, it's a real thing, let's play for real. You'll get to know your fellow casters, make and build connections that you can use to find jobs down the line. There's also the Grassroots Discord, which I will link to later. There's a larger collection there of Discord servers that are useful for amateur casting beyond just the Esports Production Discord. Jake has put together a nice little list there, and you'll find that. At some point, you're just going to have to do it. The hardest cast you're ever going to do, the hardest broadcast you're ever going to do is your first cast. You just have to, hit the record button, go at it, and just do it. Find somebody to cast with, find a co-caster, go over a professional game of whatever it is you're commentating. If it's League of Legends, if it's Dota, if it's Counter-Strike, find a professional game, just mute the sound, and go at it. Give it a go. You're not going to be great, right? It's your first time, but just do it, because then you've got your foot in the door. It's kind of like writing an essay, right? Once you start, you're feeling good about it. Just get over that hump and do it. Record your cast and get some feedback on it. Watch over it yourself, and then also you can reach out to more experienced casters like myself, and we would often be happy to do a little VOD review with you and give you some feedback. Just kind of a note, be respectful when you're reaching out to folks. Hey, I've got a VOD. I'm hoping to have some feedback on it. Would you be willing to, give me 15, 20 minutes, look it over and let me know what you think. Just something like that. We're going to be a lot more receptive if you are, polite. If you say hello, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you. It goes a long way, since, a lot of people get a lot of DMs, and we want to give priority to all of them, but obviously we can't. So being respectful, punctuation, capital letters, goes a long way in actually getting people's attention. And at that point, rinse and repeat. Keep casting. At some point, you're going to, be okay with your rough draft, your rough product. You're not going to be happy with it. Most casters, if you play them their most recent VOD, are going to tell you they're not happy with it, right? They're going to try to pick themselves apart. They're not going to be happy. So once you're okay with your rough product, that's kind of when you can stop this maybe first phase. And this is really the start of your portfolio. Later, it can get refined into more of a casting reel that you may have heard of. But for now, hey, I've got this VOD. This is kind of what I'm going with for now. That counts as the start of your portfolio. It's the start of you kind of looking for work. So once you feel ready, reach out, try to sign up for your first gig. There's a channel in this very Discord that we're in called #practice opportunities. Those are ones that you will not be reimbursed for, you won't be paid for, but it's a great chance for beginners. It's organizations that are looking for newer casters to kind of get some practice in. and it's a great chance to kind of dip your toes into doing a full-on broadcast for real, right? It's a little bit different than just doing a practice opportunity, or than doing a practice cast by yourself. You'll actually, show up on time, go through all the motions, but it's a little bit lower stakes. So that's a really great way to just build up some confidence without feeling like you're, blowing some kind of high-stakes project. Don't expect to get reimbursed at first. You're not going to get a ton of pay until you're casting, tier 1, tier 2 games anyway. But, know your value. Right when you start out, you shouldn't expect to be getting paid, to be getting reimbursed, whatever you want to call it. The values are, tend to be pretty low in the amateur scene. Don't expect to be getting paid immediately. Know your value. Once you're up there, that's when you can kind of start asking for that tip, for that reimbursement. But at the start, realize that you're new. You're mostly just doing it for fun. You're doing it to learn. Don't expect to get reimbursed at first, because that just isn't going to happen. And you've got to have fun. If you're not having fun, it's going to A, show in your casting, and B, if you're not having fun, what are you doing? So you got to have fun doing it. Be really open. Ask for notes. Focus on improving. If you ask your co-caster after a broadcast, hey, what could I have done better? Do you have some notes for me? Almost for sure, if they're a more experienced caster, they're going to have something to tell you. They might not be very tactful about it always, but people are generally very happy to, tell you what they think you did wrong, what you can do better, and generally are quite constructive about it because they are going to cast with you in the future, most likely. And so everybody wants to have the best broadcast possible. And so asking for notes, people are going to tend to be more than happy to spend 5 minutes typing out, yep, these are some things that I noticed that you could kind of clean up for next time. And it all kind of spirals up from here. Jake pointed out that I shouldn't be implying it all spirals downward. It all spirals up, hopefully, from here. Just keep doing practice cast. Eventually, maybe start to get paid, build up some connections. I know Stuart's going to talk about this a little bit in the intermission between Cam and myself here. But you're really going through that process, making connections, and you'll build out a bigger and bigger network. It's just like networking in the real world, just done on Discord, essentially. It's done on Discord. It's done in a little bit less traditional sense, right? This is esports. We're not on LinkedIn, formally messaging for jobs. But, it definitely can spiral upward, and that's what we've been working on for Playing for Real. And I think that is a great way to think about it for casting, is if you keep putting in the effort, you can keep kind of working your way up, even within the amateur casting world. Do some broadcasting basics. Hey, I got hired. I reached out for this practice opportunity. Turns out I don't know what to do. Now what do I do? First of all, you're going to need some equipment. A good quality microphone will go a long way in the world of broadcasting, which is, large percentage audio. Invest in a reasonably good quality microphone. A lot of recommendations various casters will give you. I have an AT2020 USB. I think it's a pretty nice microphone, but be willing to spend, a little bit more. The sound quality is worth it. If you're casting on, a headset mic, a cheap headset mic, a cheap standalone mic, you're not going to sound as good, right? And that will hurt your quality. Pop filter, make sure you're not popping too much. This is something I've struggled with for a long time. Pop filters can help you just not sound as airy, not sound as breathy. It's a nice little piece of equipment to invest in, and they're not very expensive. Your computer needs to be able to, run games. Generally strong computer. A webcam is great. For a lot of broadcasts now are requiring webcams, or at least they're definitely recommended. And a lot of overlays have camera spots built into them, right? So if you don't have a camera, that can be a problem, or at least a pretty high quality, shoulders up headshot will definitely help you out. For graphics, a lot of organizations are going to kind of struggle if you don't have any kind of picture of yourself or a camera. That can sometimes cause problems. And finally, a background can be very useful as well. Maybe it's a folding green screen behind you, but you don't even need to get that technical, that fancy. Just, clean up behind you, make it look reasonably presentable. Do the test function on Discord, whatever. Make sure the background, you're happy with what's behind you, because a lot of times people won't, necessarily remember what's behind them, and that can lead to problems. Clothes in the background, random dishes, etc. Just make sure it's a little bit cleaned up, and try to, go start your cast as professionally as possible. Good camera, microphone sounds good, and then take it from there. Your voice. You want to develop your own voice on air, kind of, develop your own personality. Take advantage of your actual voice and recognize what you sound like. This will require you, this job in general, will require you to listen to yourself. Accept that you don't like how you sound. Very few people like how their voice sounds, just full stop. It sounds nasally, it sounds too high-pitched. We don't like the voice that we actually hear. We like the voice that's in our head. So be aware of that, accept that you don't like it, and then also take advantage of what you sound like, because you can take advantage of that, right? Do you have a very traditional radio voice, low, baritone? You can kind of, meld that into maybe a more soothing broadcast versus, if you don't have that and you try to, it's probably not going to work out, right? So maybe you go the Ira Glass route. I don't know if there's any public radio listeners of This American Life, but he is a lot more nasally and higher pitched, and that's not traditionally good. Obviously, he's taken advantage of that. So kind of be aware of what you sound like and then modify it a little bit. You can listen back to yourself and see how you sound. And the pitch and tone of your voice will really matter. If you drone on in a cast in a monotone like this, it's not going to be that interesting, especially throughout a team fight or something in League of Legends. You're just not going to sound that interesting. So you want to modify the pitch and the tone of your voice a little bit, like you're giving a presentation, because otherwise you'll kind of sound like a metronome, and nobody wants that. And then also while you're speaking, you want to project. Don't be fooled. The microphone is maybe a foot in front of me right now, but you still need to speak like you mean it, right? This is not a time to just, be talking like you're having a normal conversation, because you sound a lot weaker. You don't sound as interested. I'm assuming I don't sound very interested right now, and I'm talking, at a pretty normal volume. So you want to speak like you mean it. Speak like you're talking to your neighbor across the street, Jake told me the other day, as a good idea, right? Think that you're on stage. You're on stage, you're not mic'd. You got to project a little bit. Volume is the producer's job, so you don't need to worry about how loud you're being necessarily. I mean, don't blow out your mic, but the producer is going to be there to kind of make sure the volumes all match. What you want to focus on is clarity, diction, and quality of your tone and your voice. That goes back to that kind of varying that I talked about before, and just sound active, sound present, and also speak clearly. Enunciate your words. It's very important for in the middle of a team fight if you're a play-by-play caster, and just overall quality of your voice and your tone. You want it to be strong. Oh, and also don't be boring. Speaking normally, as I just kind of alluded to, makes you sound kind of bored. You sound not very engaged. You sound like you don't really want to be here. Okay, we've got another fight going on, yada, yada, yada. You don't sound great. If you are bored while you're casting, you're probably doing it wrong. You should generally be engaged. You should be excited about it, right? You're on air, you're casting. This is very fun. If the game is boring, which is a excellent source of boredom, right? If there's a 60-minute game, you're kind of bored. Tell us why the game is boring. There's reasons that games are boring, right? Is it boring because it's a 25-0 kill stomp in 15 minutes? Okay, at least it's over quickly for you. But tell us why it's boring. Why is this team stalling out? Why are they unable to close out the game? Something like that. Bring the audience along with this game is boring. I'm not bored about it because I'm going to tell you why, and that can help you be a lot more active, as can looking at things that aren't the outcome. So yes, a 25-0 kill stomp is really not that interesting just for the outcome. If you're only looking at what Nexus explodes, your analysis is not going to be that deep. They're going to win the game, right? We know this. They're up 15,000 gold. It doesn't matter. What you want to do is look at things that aren't the outcome. Where does this place them in the standings? Where have they met this team before? Have they played this year? Did they play last year? Was there a season ago? Is this season 5 of the league? Maybe they've met this team in the finals the last 4 seasons, and they haven't ever been able to win. This is the first time they're taking a game off this team because they got a new player. Something like that. Come up with something that isn't the outcome of the game, that isn't Nexus exploding based, and is more based on the standings, the teams, the ranks of the players, anything else that can kind of bring the audience along, and do your best to sound engaged, to sound interested, and obviously it helps if you really are. Sometimes you might end up just dead bored on air. It happens. Generally you're going to be engaged. It's just a random composition of circumstances. You're not feeling up to it. Do your best, sound engaged, sound interested. And that sometimes can save you, but obviously it's best overall if you actually are. And be confident. It goes back to this acting thing, right? Maybe you're not super confident. You're on air, you're having a rough day, but you're there to entertain, you're there to perform, you're there to inform the audience as well. And, whatever happened, mic goes live, you're on air, you're here to perform, you're here to inform. And so, maybe you've had a rough day, maybe something's not going super well, whatever it is, you want to do your best to just push that aside, be confident, go back to your acting, you step out on stage and you sing your aria, you go out on stage, you nail the line, whatever it is, and you'll get used to this as you're on air more and more. You'll be more confident in front of the camera with the microphone in front of you, etc. But if you're confident, it communicates to the viewer that you're excited to be there, that you're feeling good about it. And even if you're actually not, having that presence and that confidence there will go a long way to making you sound a lot more engaged, and overall the broadcast will just be a lot better. Tone. Mentioned this earlier, just a quick slide on it. Specifically, you want to vary your tone throughout a broadcast within team fights as applicable. You're going to sound a lot more interesting if your tone is more varied. If you go through a team fight, we've got a fight. Unstoppable forces across the back line. He's going to be taken down, and it's going very low. The team, are they going to be able to win the fight? Sound like a metronome. Whereas if you can get really excited when something big happens, then he's always able to escape. But then this happens, back to the top, whatever, right? Random play-by-playing of nothing. But vary your tone throughout a broadcast within a fight. If it's a really exciting moment, get really excited. But if it's not an exciting moment, if it's a random gank, he's going to get killed, don't get too excited. You want to match your tone to what's happening on air too, because if a team is down 15,000 gold and they get one kill, you don't really want to be getting super excited. Oh my God, they might come back and win. The audience, it doesn't sound genuine. The audience is going to be like, what's this guy on about? If it happens, obviously then get excited, but match your tone to the broadcast, match your tone to what's going on, and also vary your tone as much as you can to avoid kind of ear fatigue on the part of the audience, and you'll just generally sound not as robotic, and nobody wants to sound robotic. You've got to prepare. If you don't prepare, you're going to have a worse time. It is easier to do if you're prepared. This image is of Mike Emmerich, legendary hockey announcer. This is his prep sheet that he has for every one of the games that he broadcast. He made one of these every day. You don't have to go this in depth. I'm not honestly sure how he can read all that, but show up at your call time, a little bit before your call time. Give yourself 30 minutes before you're, especially when you're starting out. 30 minutes of prep, and I think most of the experienced casters here or listening to this would admit that we would like to show up earlier than we actually do. Give yourself that time to prep. Ask the tournament, league admins, tournament director, league admins, organizers for details they have in advance. Please, 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 as a tournament organizer, as a league admin, please ask for the details in advance, right? We can give you the teams, we can give you the standings, we can give you some story about them if you want, and reach out for those details. Don't wait for them to come to you, because the tournament directors are busy. If you have a chance, reach out and ask. Discuss key picks, ideas with your co-caster. Make sure they're in the loop about what you want to talk about. Have that conversation before the game. It'll make your product that much better. I like to take notes while your co-caster's talking. They say something in the early part of their speech that you want to follow up on. Just jot it down. If you see something on the map, jot it down so you know what you're going to say when it is your turn again. Having that sheet of notes will also help. Have the caster names down, have the team names down, the player names if it helps you, etc. Your casting self is going to thank your preparing self if you've done this prep, because otherwise you'll go on air, you won't have any prep done. Who am I casting with? Who are these teams? And that doesn't make you sound good. You'll end up sounding flustered, etc. Do the prep. It's worth it to show up 15 minutes before, 30 minutes before, whatever the call time is. Be there on time, and it'll also make you seem a lot more professional for the organization if they're thinking about hiring you back if you are there on time. You got to keep talking. The 3-second rule is a pretty good rule of thumb. The idea is you don't want to have more than 3 seconds of silence between one person stopping and one person starting. If you just kind of stop talking, you have dead air. That's a tune-out opportunity, as it's called. In radio, I learned a lot of these rules in radio, where that's literally all that's happening. Dead air is, it's the station offline, what's going on. Sometimes the game can carry it. I wouldn't count on it. You want to prepare something to say while you're listening. There are times that silence can be used judiciously and can be used well to bring audience engagement back, etc. There are some exceptions to this rule, but at a basic level, as good rule of thumb, your partner stops talking, it's your turn. You got about 3 seconds before you need to start talking, or it's going to sound awkward. How do you do this? You nail your transitions. When your co-caster stops talking, hey, it's your turn. There's only 2 of you. If you're doing a tri-cast, it's a little bit different, but we're not going to talk about that today. Have something ready that's at least reasonably related to what your co-caster just said, and off you go. So be ready, know what you're going to say, because if you don't know what you're going to say, and suddenly it's your turn, you're going to have a bad time trying to come up with something coherent to say in 2 seconds. On the other side of it, try to end your speech on a pretty clear ending note. This makes it a lot easier for your co-caster to pick up and know that you're done. Jake introduced me to the idea of the speaking stone. You want to basically give that stone, the speaking stone, back to your co-caster at the end of your sentence. Make sure they know that your point is over. You don't want to be, this team's up 5,000 gold. That could be really beneficial to them. And, am I done? Nobody knows, right? They're up 5,000 gold. That's going to be really beneficial for them. They're able to complete their second items of this game. They have a huge advantage for this upcoming dragon fight. It's a lot more obvious that I'm done. Give that stone back. Don't go on rambles. Give the stone back. Don't make your co-caster be like, oh, it's my turn. I haven't had a chance to talk in, a minute and a half. Give it back. Finish on an end note. They know you're done. It's their turn. And if they do the same thing, it's a lot easier to pick up on. If you sound like you might say more, but no one's really sure, it ends up being awkward. You're going to end up talking over each other. No one's going to be really sure what's happening. You end up with 5 or 10 seconds of confusion, and it's not great. So either say what you're going to say, as long as it's related and you haven't been talking too long, or just stop, right? You got a point. Maybe I could say more. Hey, I'll say it next time. Over to you, friend, co-caster, and off you go. Mistakes are going to happen. It's better to say a bungled sentence than to just sit there terrified in silence. Fun quote from Caster Jun, one of the most famous, probably broadcasters in Korea. He's one of the main hype casters for the Korean League of Legends broadcast in Korean. He said, like, sometimes my grammar might be wrong, my sentences might sound awkward, maybe there's even some English and Korean getting mixed up there, but he's not a newsreader, was my favorite part of this quote. His role is to hype, his role is not to, perfectly enunciate sentences in a row, and he's, world renowned as a great commentator. And it doesn't matter that you say a bad sentence. No one's going to remember that you said a sentence with the wrong champion names and the wrong event, right? It doesn't really matter, right? Maybe at the moment they're like, oh, did he really mean to say that? But in the end, they're going to remember it more. Hey, remember when that caster, there was 15 seconds, he was just silent. Yeah, it seemed like he just disappeared. What happened to him? I'm not sure. That's what they're going to remember is, oh, this guy disappeared for 15 seconds. That's not great. So it's better to just say something. Might be kind of wrong. Might even just be factually wrong. Doesn't really matter. As long as you say it, it's kind of related, it's in the right tone, people are going to get the point, and the audience isn't really going to notice. It's the kind of thing that your brain's kind of like, oh, that sounded wrong, but then you move on, right? There's the next sentence, there's the next team fight, and by the end of the game, it's completely gone. Whereas if you disconnect from the call for 2 minutes, that is a lot more noticeable. Drink, drink, drink. Hydrate constantly through each cast. I'll take a celebratory sip to celebrate this point. Tea with honey is popular. Whatever works for you works, but you want to keep drinking. Some people like milk, some people don't like dairy before they go on air. That's kind of a debate. Your voice is going to thank you the day after if you drink during your stream, if you take good care of your voice, which is the next slide. Keep drinking. I like to take a sip every time I stop talking, pretty much. Just keep your vocal folds wet. It is going to do a lot of good for you in the long run if you take care of your voice. Tea with honey is very, very popular, as I said. If you haven't done that, try it out. Also, take care of your voice. Do some warm-ups. People prefer different ones. I like to do tongue twisters. There's a fun link to some tongue twisters. You don't want to go live with a non-warmed up voice. If you haven't warmed up and you just go live and you try to start doing hype immediately, you can be forced to rest. You can permanently damage your voice if you try to speak too much, but you're likely going to have to take days off. You're going to have a sore throat. You're not going to feel great about yourself. Do some warm-ups. Warm up your voice a little bit. Do some speaking. You can look up some routines for kind of warming up the voice. Make sure that you're ready to go. Your voice is ready. This is a marathon. It's not a race for casting. You want to be able to cast day after day after day after day, ideally, in a perfect world, right? I mean, the pro casters are going back to back to back to back. It's a marathon. This is not a race. Keep drinking. Take care of your voice, and you will thank me, and you'll thank yourself later if you do this, because your voice is an instrument. It's very easily damageable, and you can permanently damage yourself if you're not careful. So I think it's important to kind of focus on that too. Just do a couple tongue twisters. They're kind of fun. You can impress your friends if you practice them enough. Do some fast speaking, massage your throat, massage your voice, etc. All of that will help. With that, I want to hand it back over to Stuart and then Cam for her segment. So thank you all for listening to the introduction, kind of broadcast basics. I'll be back after Cam's next segment, and we'll do a little bit deeper dive into League of Legends and play-by-play specifically. Stuart, it's over to you.
Thanks, Carl.